a normal woman. Okay, does that mean that, I was born a man? No, I was born with female organs, but my brain, for all intent and purposes, was born male, was born a man, was born a boy. And the same thing goes, I said, so that's the nature. And then the nurture part of it is, and again, this comes from a pastor at work who wanted to avoid the topic altogether, was, are we nurtured into these things? I was raised by a single father. So does that mean that he encouraged more masculine behaviors than feminine? Oh my God, of course. My father would have known how to put on nail polish if it saved his life. And here's the thing. I never asked to put nail polish on my father. I would have loved to have seen it nowadays, but I never did it. My father was not one for dresses, obviously. He needed help around the house. Jeans were accommodated. I still, to this day, live in jeans. I had long hair when I was little, but when my parents got divorced, my hair got cut. I've gone back and forth, but I'm way more comfortable with short hair. Does that, you know what I mean? Does that lend itself to it? Is that how we look at it? Do we need to go back and look at every single person and go, which one is nature versus nurture? Or again, is this what we classify as cosmic design or biblical design? If according to diehards, Christ is in charge of everything. He knows every moment, every second of your life from start to finish. So therefore, he knew this was coming. He knew you were transgender. He knew that you were a lesbian, that you were demisexual, that you were pansexual, asexual, that you were part of the Bear Brotherhood, that you were a lesbian, that I was going to be transgender, that my son was born transgender, that my daughter was born asexual, or not asexual, pansexual. He knew those things in advance, long before I got here. So if those people out there on God's green earth who say that transgenders and anybody in the LGBTQ community are going to hell because we choose to be this way, well then they're kind of contradicting their own doctrine, aren't they? If God knows it all, God's not going to set me up for failure. That's not his job. Okay, my job is to love him. His job is to be there for me, and vice versa. He loves me, I love him. That's how that's supposed to work. Okay? Parents don't set their kids up for failure. That's not their job. That's not what they do. That's not what love is. So, therefore, okay, if all those things are true, if all that doctrine is true, then I'm here by design. You're here by design. I don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Alright, so, that little rant on there. So, what I want to do is I want to go into one step further and prove this just a little bit harder. All right, and again, this is only the Christian side of it. We haven't even gotten to the Muslim side of it. Okay, so in Genesis, all right, we'll start right there at the beginning. Chapter 1, verse 26. All right, we'll go through 26 through 28. This is the only time I swear I'm going to quote Scripture because I don't remember most of it. And it says in the beginning, God created man. Okay, remember first off, okay, that as a history teacher, this was not written in English, okay? So, we are translating, all right? And how were books written back then? By hand. Okay, so books were written by hand. They were translated from one person to another person in scriptures, scrolls, whatever, all right? We also know for a fact that the Catholic Church was notorious in its early days. Okay, by early days, I'm talking about the time of Charlemagne, and around that time, preferably a little bit earlier than that, before that, where things were being pulled out and put in and twisted and turned to fit the ideology of a misogynistic culture. Okay, men ruled the world back then. Okay, they don't now, we don't now, but back then it was a man's world. All right, and I'm not playing the song because I swear I won't. With Leo Gun, I can play with the buttons. Okay. Squirrel moment. So, now the thing of it is that in Genesis 1:26, it says, let us make man. Now this is, I want to quote a couple of verses, because you got to remember, there's King James Version, there's the Standard English Version, which is kind of the newer version. There's a couple, and then of course there's the NIV and a bunch of others. But the NIV says, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the animals on the land. Over the fowls of the air, over the cattle, over all of the earth, and all creeping things in that crawl upon the earth. Okay, so it says mankind. Okay, this is implying humankind. Remember, it's a man's world, so we're going to use mankind. Okay, so in addition to that, okay, the King James Version. All right, let us make man in our likeness. Right, we're always talking about men in our likeness. Okay. So the thing of it is, and what we talk about here, is it says so what does God do? So God creates man in his own image, and then the Bible goes, God created man again in his own image, man being mankind, right? People. He created humanity. Again, I can't reiterate this. This is a misogynistic world, so of course we're going to say mankind. But then he goes on to say he created them, male and female, he created them both. Okay, so here's, and this is the important part, and so I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat it, but chunk by chunk. Okay, so God creates man. God creates humanity. He creates them, male and female. He created them both, not man and woman, male and female. So he created a pair. Okay, both sides of the same coin, yin and yang. Matching sets. He created the sexes, not the genders. He created two separate sexes. All right, which we all agree on. I mean, we agree completely that there's a complete difference between gender versus sex. All right, we know this. All right, the Bible doesn't change that. The Bible agrees. Male and female, he created them both. He created them in pairs. Adam and Eve, right? Now that's to say that's not. I'm not saying that homosexuality is incorrect. I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form. Because again, God created you. Period. He knew who you were long before you knew who you were. Okay, that means that you can't be wrong. Okay, you can't help who you fall in love with. You cannot help that. That is who you are. God created you this way. Okay, so don't go there. All right, so I'm focusing on this male versus female thing, or male and female, because God creates pairs. Okay, God created balance in pairs. So if I wanted to be a smart ass, I could go, okay, well, God created a pair and male and female. Well, then male and male don't work. Well, yes, it does, because male and male works and female work. They're still pairs, right? Now, I'm not going to get into the whole polyamorous thing and groupings. That's not where we're going, okay? Because balancing's down. There's still, I still believe that there's somebody out there for everybody. That doesn't necessarily mean that you get with that person. It just means that there is a match for you. That doesn't mean that you get your match. You may, buddy up with 1 million people before you find that one match, or you may never find that one match. It may take multiple people to help you find that one match. It's hard to say. I don't know. That's not my job. I don't judge. It's not my place. Okay, I have no place to judge. It's not. So, like I was saying, before I went off on that horrible rant, wow, I see what that person meant. Somebody made that comment that they couldn't follow my podcast because it was all over the place. I think I understand now. Yeah, that really was all over the place. So, God creates man and woman, male and female. Not man and woman. Male and female. Okay? In other versions of the Bible, it does say man and woman. But again, we're talking about a misogynistic culture doing the translating. The only way to know exactly what was said, and even then, it's not exactly what was said, would be to read the original scripture. Unfortunately, I do not speak Hebrew, so I don't know. Okay, not to mention that, but I wasn't here 4,000 years ago, or how many ever millions or thousands of years ago when it was written, or transcribed, or copied, or dictated. Yeah, dictated. That's the right word. I want dictated. Okay, I just went through my own little dictionary moment there. So as far as, like I said, as far as Christianity goes, and the thing was that, like I said, the sister was a little confused. She was adorable. She was confused, and she did not understand that I was transgender. She didn't really understand the concept of transgender. The thing that she understood was that and the other pastor had talked about this too, was that at work, a lot of the individuals who are transgender come across as very miserable. They've talked about hurting themselves. They talk about cutting themselves. They talk about a lot of things that are not pleasant, and the reason being is they're not receiving the appropriate psychological therapy or medication that they need in order to be their true selves. And so, of course, that weighs heavily on them. And they didn't understand that because they had only seen that aspect, so therefore they thought that every transgender was like that. And I was kind of throwing a little wrench in their mentality, and I had to explain that, well, I'm happy with the way I am, or I'm happy with who I am, because I'm growing into who I am, and I'm becoming externally who I've always known I was on the inside. And can you imagine knowing who you are and not being allowed to express it to the utmost of your ability because where you are says you can't do that? You imagine that? And that's what, and so I'm trying to explain that to them, that the reason why I'm so happy and the reason why I get to smile and joke and laugh is because I have that accessibility, and these people don't. And before you go, well, that's not fair and that's not right, you're absolutely right. And in the same breath, slow your roller, because these people are where they are for a reason. And I can only hope that in time they will get the things that they need and the therapy that they need, and hopefully on the outside when we get there they're able to. But for the moment they're kind of stuck in the system. We'll just leave it at that. And so, like I said, they didn't understand it, and the sister really didn't understand. She didn't understand how I could be male when I'm such a happy-go-lucky person, and I smile and I laugh, and how could I be one of those transgenders? And I wanted to go, well, how can you be one of those quote-unquote nuns? And she's like, well, this was my calling. And I went, ha, me too. And she we talked back and forth. She's like, well, I always knew I was going to be a nun. I said, well, I always thought I was a boy, so I see how this works. And, slowly and surely, like by the end of the conversation, I think I'd made some headway, but it was really, really interesting because she had not. And again, it seems like everybody who wants to, people who are exposed to transgender individuals, they either know or they're really curious but don't know how to ask. I don't know if anybody's ever faced that, but like I said, when I go to work and I say, hey, I want to talk about being transgender, I want to talk about your opinions on this, whether it's, religion or politics or what have you, they're like, I've got a ton of questions for you I've been dying to ask. You ever feel like that? Does anybody ever come up to you and go, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? I always love the ones that they are dying to know, like, and I don't know why I get a kick out of this, but they're dying to know what's in my pants. I'm like, why? Why do you want to know if I've had surgery? Did you ask a woman who's had a hysterectomy? Have you asked her if she had a surgery? Why do you want to know what's in my pants? And they ask, hey, are you planning on having surgery? And I'll be perfectly honest with them. I look at them and go, no. Not yet. Not now. Well, how come? Well, because I'm just not there yet. Thank you for asking. Thank you for being so concerned about what's in my drawers. Can I ask about yours? And then it's a weird conversation because nobody wants to talk about what's in their drawers. They're just interested in what's in mine. There's absolutely nothing about the Bible when it comes to that. So, but the reason why I say that is because the ones with the biggest questions are my Muslims. The Muslim guys that I see every day at work, they're the ones with the biggest questions. They're the most insane curiosity, and it's a voracious curiosity about this. And not in a sexual context. It's not like they're being weird or anything like that.